everybody. My name is Jeannie Rouse, and I'm a nursing student with Indiana State University. I am doing a presentation today about immunizations that are needed for school in Oregon, how it's very important for children to get their vaccinations from birth all the way up until school, but mostly this just goes over immunizations that Oregon school districts require to go to school there. So these are some of the learning objectives that we're going to go over today. At the end of this presentation, the learner or the student who's watching this should be able to describe the impact of Oregon state laws has on vaccination. They should be able to recite the barriers and myths related to vaccination. They should be able to summarize the vaccine list that is listed for Oregon school acceptance. They should be able to explain the potential consequences of not having immunizations. And they should be able to choose a location or a clinic to get vaccinations using the clinic locator websites that I have in the presentation here at the end. So let's go over Oregon laws on immunizations. So immunizations are required by state law for children and students in attendance at public and private schools, preschools, child care facilities, and Head Start programs in Oregon. Nearly every facility that provides care for a child outside the home requires immunizations, or you can have a medical or non-medical exemption form to stay enrolled. Parents who do not want their children vaccinated have to claim a non-medical or medical exemption. In order to do that, there is a link up on the Oregon website that you click on, and it has the form, and you have to go to a doctor's office, and there's a video that they make parents watch that talk about the dangers of not having your child vaccinated, and you sign an attestation, and so does the doctor, and then you get your form signed. And then for Oregon, they have an exclusion notice that goes out to parents while your child's in school. The exclusion date is always around February 19th or 20th every year, and it lets parents know if their child is missing any vaccinations, and that if they do not have them done by the exclusion date, they are not allowed to come back into school. And then we'll talk about some myths and barriers to vaccines. One of the first barriers and myths is that vaccines cause autism. There is no relationship between any vaccine and the link to autism. The widespread fear that it originated back in 1997 from a study that was published by an author who has since lost his medical license. And so technically that is all, since he lost his medical license and the study was disproved, there is no actual link scientifically between autism and vaccines causing them. Many autism experts are increasingly convinced that autism is determined before birth, well before vaccinations are given. Another myth is that it's not necessary to vaccinate my child early in life. While these diseases prevent most deadly vaccines, it helps prevent them from dying at a very young age. That's why they're recommended at their earliest ages. Delaying vaccines until children are older simply puts infants and toddlers at greater risk for potentially life-threatening diseases like whooping cough, which is pertussis, measles, and diphtheria. And then there are more vaccinations given today than a few decades ago, which increases their efficiency. And then the next myth is that the vaccine schedule is too aggressive and should be spaced out. Immunization schedule is determined by decades of medical evidence showing that there's a window of time where vaccines are most effective in preventing the diseases. However, many parents feel that the recommended schedule is too aggressive, so they always want to get 1 or 2 vaccines done at a time at a much slower pace. This results in missing the window of effectiveness, which results in more office visits, more injections, and as a result, you could potentially have higher out-of-pocket expenses. Another myth or barrier is that vaccines cause the disease that they are meant to prevent. So vaccines don't cause diseases because they don't contain any active viruses. Vaccines stimulate the immune system to produce antibodies that are needed to protect us or become immune to the disease. The inactivated virus in the vaccines essentially trick the immune system into thinking there's a threat so that it will create antibodies, which protects us. Another myth is that vaccines contain unsafe toxins. It's true that vaccines do contain trace amounts of formaldehyde, mercury, and aluminum. While this may sound scary, the additives actually make the vaccine safer. They ensure that the vaccine is sterile and that it's able to do its job effectively. And they are only toxic in amounts far higher than the trace amounts needed in a vaccine. In fact, formaldehyde is produced at higher rates in our body's own metabolic system than what is contained in an actual vaccine. And then everyone's always particularly concerned about thimerosal. It is a mercury-based preservative, but it has been eliminated from all pediatric vaccines since the 1999. So everyone that's concerned or thinks thimerosal is still in vaccines, it's pretty much unfounded at this point. And then another myth is that vaccinations have never been proven. Simply put, vaccines are scientifically proven and they are extremely effective. Depending on the vaccine, there's usually a 95 to nearly 100% of children develop immunity against the targeted disease. And then another myth is not vaccinating my child only affects my child. Unfortunately, we've seen in recent years that simply isn't true. Some parents skip vaccinations because they believe that the vaccines have been effective in making the diseases like obsolete or quite rare. Other experts point out that recent measles and mumps outbreaks have happened, and that we should be cognizant of it, and that herd immunity can play a role in protecting the community. And herd immunity means that there's a higher enough percentage of people in the population who are immune from disease and that there are fewer susceptible people left to infect. But that should only be used in the rare cases for patients who are unable to get certain vaccines like cancer patients or immunosuppressed patients. And then this is the list of the vaccines that are needed for school based on age. You can see the list here. Most of the children need DTaP, which is a tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis combination vaccine. They need 3 polios. They need the varicella vaccine, which is chickenpox. They need the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, hepatitis B, hepatitis A, and then Hib. A lot of these vaccines are given simultaneously. A lot of them are all together in one vaccine depending on your age of your child. That's why it's always good to get the vaccines based off the recommended schedule of age, because some of these vaccines are created together so that even though it looks like they're getting 5 vaccines, in reality they only can get 3 because there's a lot of combinations that are mixed together. Like you can get the MMR and the varicella together in one vaccine versus 2. And then parents, please remember to keep records of your child's vaccines at home with you at all times. Make lots of copies. Do not give the original to the school because you will need these vaccine records throughout your child's life all the way up until they go to college, because a lot of colleges are now recommending that adults have vaccination proof of MMR vaccine. What if we stopped vaccinations? Well, diseases would come back. Things like whooping cough, polio, measles, and rubella would strike hundreds of thousands of infants, children, and adults. And diseases haven't disappeared technically. We have very low rates of these preventable diseases, but only one disease, smallpox, has been totally erased from the planet. And we'd have declining herd immunity as well. And then this is just another slide that talks about if we continue to not have vaccinations. So you could see there was an increase in measles cases in Multnomah County in 2019. We had a number of cases around the same time in other states. They were able to trace back to certain exposure errors, and they determined it came about from a lack of immunization inside the state. And then it also led to an increased fear of getting measles, so a lot of parents opted to increase immunization rates as well. And then the Concordia Fabian Wellness Center is just a school-based health center that was able to conduct some of the measles outbreak information, and they are part of the children's vaccination program, and they were able to vaccinate low-income children and their family members against MMR, and they also contain other vaccinations. This is just what their building looks like on the outside. This just has some little bit of information about the clinic, if you want to just take a look at the slide there. And then the Vaccines for Children program is a program that's funded by the CDC. It's here in Oregon. Kids have to fit a certain eligibility criteria in order to receive like free vaccinations. Clinics do have to qualify under federal and state rules to be able to provide free vaccines or low-cost vaccinations to the general public. If you go onto their website, the clinics can fill out some forms and get verification into this program. And then here are some resources on where to get vaccines and some other information as well. This website right here is the Student Health Centers, where students can go and look for health clinics within their school system to get vaccines. This right here is a list of county clinics within Multnomah County to receive vaccinations that are part of the vaccines program. If you have any questions about vaccinations, this is an FAQ sheet from the CDC. They also have information sheets per vaccine, so you can get side effects, dosing, any kind of potential concerns, things like that. And then this is the list of what Multnomah County schools need for children to have vaccines as well. And these are the references that I used to create this PowerPoint. Thanks, everybody.